Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Arundhati Ramanan and these are the top headlines from the startup world. PhonePe registers a 77% year-on-year growth in its FY23 revenue. UPI total payments value market share of PhonePe stood at 50.54% in March. Company says its payments business is moving towards positive EBITDA. Fingerprint, a US-based startup that provides a device intelligence API, gets $33 million in Series C funding round led by Nexus Venture Partners and Uncorrelated Ventures. Funds will help accelerate adoption within larger enterprise customers, build new tools and capabilities. Amazon India onboards 12 more SMBs under its delivery service partner program across key states in North India, including Delhi NCR. Initiative aimed at supporting budding entrepreneurs by creating employment opportunities for various delivery associates. Alphabet-owned autonomous vehicle company Waymo laid off more employees for the third time this year. Startup says the fresh layoffs are part of an integral reorganization process, doesn't reveal the exact number of affected employees. Microsoft is preparing to bring Amazon as a customer for its 365 cloud productivity tools in a deal worth over $1 billion, according to Insider. The e-commerce giant has committed the amount for over 5 years and to secure more than 1 million Microsoft 365 license seats. Those were the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening on What's Brewing. Fintech unicorn PhonePe has come out with its numbers for FY23. The startup has reported a revenue of a little over 2,900 crore rupees, registering a 77% growth over FY22. Now, the growth was mainly due to its expansion within the digital payment space and the launch of a slew of new products. UPI total payments value market share stood at 50.54% in March 2023. Standalone PhonePe India's operating losses widened to come in at 1,755 crore rupees. However, PhonePe's EBITDA, excluding employee costs, stood at 159 crore rupees in profit against a loss in FY22. Now, the company said that the losses widened on account of substantial ESOPs that were vested in FY23 towards corporate restructuring. And moving on, India is and will be one of Uber's biggest markets. That's the word coming in from Praveen Nepali Naga, VP and Global Head of Mobility Engineering at Uber. My colleague Ritu Singh caught up with Naga at the company's Bengaluru office to talk about the company's new mobility products, outlook for the India market, and more. Take a look.
India is and will be one of our biggest markets. And we've been operating here for many years, almost a decade now. And a bunch of our technology innovations have come from India, the products that we have built from India. So India is where we test these products, but then it becomes our expansion across the globe. So in that way, it's one of our biggest markets and will be our biggest market.
Could you elaborate more on the kind of innovation you're driving from here, from your team of engineers in India, that you're utilizing for your markets overseas?
See, I'm really proud of this. And the couple of examples that I'll tell you that we did recently is Uber Bus, and we have launched it in Delhi and Mumbai, and we probably will expand to many cities, and then we'll take it global after that, right? And if it works in India, it works everywhere, right? And the second is Intercity, which I'm really, really proud of. And the third thing is, airports is one of our highest demand areas for Uber, both to and coming back from airports. The tech innovations we are doing is we want to do a reserve. Like, we don't want to be in a situation where you push that button and then, oh, I didn't get the Uber, so what do I do at this point? So you can make a reservation. That's an interesting tech. But then after that, you'll be able to enter your flight information. Then we will be able to automatically adjust your Uber reserve. Let's say if it's 1 hour delayed, and so you don't have to go to airport early as such.
So with the Uber Bus, for instance, you've launched it in Delhi and Mumbai. What are the next few cities? How soon are you going to be launching there? And of course, Intercity we've seen with Uber for a while, but these airport services, how many cities in India will they be present in?
I would say we are currently in 2 cities for Uber Bus. And we are currently in the planning process for next year, for 24. We have pretty aggressive plans to launch in many cities, the obvious ones that you might think of, and then we want to take it global after that. So you'll see, I can't tell you the exact number of cities, that's in our planning process, but it'll come back.
But, what next? What are you innovating for? You outlined your plans for the bus, for the Intercity, for the airport transfers. What next in India?
What we have learned over the years is to focus on few things every year and so forth. But the one big area where we will invest, which we have committed a lot, is the sustainability area. as we all know, the climates and how it's changing, how the fossil fuels are contributing to it. So Uber has a commitment to enable sustainable EV fleet across the world. And one of the commitment that we have made is 100% of cars will be EV in London by 25.
What about in India? I mean, if you spent any time in Bangalore, you'd know the problem of traffic congestion, the infrastructure, and you're talking about adding more to your fleet, right? Even as you're looking to electrify. How does that align with the overall objectives of sustainability for the country, for Uber?
I think what I would say is this problem is real, where our infrastructure is not growing at a pace, where our mobility needs are growing, right? I think India is exhibit A for that, honestly. And there is no one solution for it, right? The governments are investing in transit options. What we are interested in, bus, for example, putting more people in the same vehicle is one way to solve the problem. Is it the only way? No, it's one way for sure. And that's where we're investing in buses. Now apply the EV tech for it, right? Let's say we make the buses themselves EVs as such. What we are interested in, what are the tech innovations we have to do to get there? It's not as simple as just plug in your EVs and magically everything happens.
So you need the supporting infrastructure to be in place for the electrification, but is there a sort of longer-term target by when we could see that happen in India, like you're planning for London?
I can't tell you the exact numbers as such. Of course, there's many. It's dependent on availability of the infrastructure of charging stations and how much of EVs fleets are going to be available for us to consume as such, right? What we are interested in, our tech will be ready when those things are ready, right? I think that's what as a Uber, it's easy for us because we are ready in one place, the tech has to be built. So when the infrastructure is ready, we are able to adopt it as such.
Are you looking at any significant hiring for the year?
Before that, I'll just plug in that bulk of the products that I talked to you about, all those are being built by our tech folks in India. Now, over the years, we invested a lot. It took a while for us to get to 1,500. And as I said, we're not doing some back office work or something. We're doing core products for Uber, not just for India, but also expanding them globally as such. Now, we will invest in India, and that's our commitment because the talent here is amazing. And I personally studied and grew up in India. And the reason why we are able to invest here is because the talent is solid. And we will lose out if we actually don't invest in India as such. So what we are going to be very careful in our headcount growth globally as such, but we plan to invest more in India.
So Uber, they're saying that they plan to invest more in India and that it will remain one of their biggest markets. But moving on, Bengaluru-based startup Elda Health, a one-stop digital femtech health startup catering to women during their midlife, menopausal and perimenopausal years, has released a report titled State of Menopausal Health in India. Now, the study reveals startling statistics showing that 98% of women in their menopausal age largely only visit gynecologists for heavy bleeding and vaginal discharge issues, while period-related symptoms such as hot flashes, sexual health concerns and mental health issues often go unaddressed. Joining us now to discuss this further and the growth roadmap for Elda Health is its co-founder and CEO, Swati Kulkarni. Swati, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And like I just said, there's obviously a huge stigma around women and menopause, with many afraid to even get help. Firstly, take us through the symptoms women go through around menopause and what are the big challenges that they face in getting help. How bad can the situation get if it's not treated properly and in a timely manner?
Arundhati, thank you for having me here. I think it's a big problem. I mean, menopause is not a choice. Every woman will go through menopause. Pregnancy can be a choice. So we need to celebrate this phase and ensure that all the women who are going through this are actually comfortable. Menopause comes with over 43 odd symptoms. There are issues that are psychological, physiological, urogenital, and many a times these are actually ignored. There are 1 billion women globally who are going through this, 150 million in India themselves. Like you mentioned, as a part of our report where we have 25,000 qualitative data and very in-depth data of our women, we realized that women were coming to us with symptoms that they never went to their gynecologist. I think there's a huge gap in terms of awareness. That is what Elda Health is trying to sort of look at. We treat our women through a holistic sort of an approach. We take care of the gynec needs, the mental health needs, as well as the fitness and nutrition needs.
Right. So
we've also got specific data about symptoms that can be solved. You sort of alluded about sexual health and mental health issues. That's a really big deal for us because though 24% of our women go through sexual health issues, 70% of our women are going through some sort of mental health issues, mood swings, sudden tearfulness, or just, anger. Very few, single-digit percentage of these women actually solve for these issues. They only wanted to solve for either sort of overweight or issues that are more period related.
Right. So you're giving them a holistic approach to dealing with their menopausal issues. So explain to me how you at Elda Health are addressing these menopausal needs for women. What do you have on offer? If you could quickly tell us what's the product pipeline that you've built, and also which offering are you seeing the most demand for at this point in time?
So I think we believe in an absolutely holistic healthcare approach, like I mentioned. The first step is awareness. Like in any case, we need to make women aware that menopause is a phase of life and it comes with all symptoms. They do not need to endure it. They need to enjoy this phase. So our awareness sessions happen both directly to customers. We also work with 25 companies and are working with a number of pivot, path-breaking companies going forward in terms of making employees as well as our customers aware. The second part is basically explaining to them what their healthcare interventions are. So we have digital subscriptions on our app, which directly the customer can use or use via the employer's app that is provided, where the patient or the woman can self-manage their symptoms. The third part is where our experts like doctors, nutritionists, therapists, all of them come together to solve for the problems. We want to stay true to the word that you're a full stack healthcare company. So we've also recently launched our 100% natural supplement products that are now available on our Elda website. These products were curated and designed by our menopause specialists as well as senior product researchers. They were taken based on the symptoms that our 70,000 odd women have sort of told us that they suffer from.
Right.
So our approach is holistic, our approach is scientific, but we never sort of ignore the path of real science and real care or empathy that needs to be given to our women.
Right. Are you today seeing more women willing to get help? What's the typical order value for you, and what are your top markets? Are you seeing any sort of a push in tier 2 cities and beyond as well when it comes to menopausal health?
So I think there is definitely a huge difference, in the way people were sort of looking at menopause 2 years ago. We'd like to take a little credit for that. Today, Elda Health is a household name for all women who are going through menopause. I think the awareness part has really sort of worked. And we'd request all corporates, the entire society to sort of lean in to get to that stage. What we see is that when you go to the US and the UK, you see a lot of these, healthcare services and products available very easily. In India, we are the top leaders in the menopause space. We want to break that entire taboo around menopause and say, hey, ageism is related to wisdom. Ageism is related to something that you can do at any point in time, right? So if you're 40 and 50, you have the rest of your life remaining, another half that you need to enjoy. So I would say that in our healthcare services and products, people typically opt for this holistic approach and do not like to cherry pick one or two. And also, if you look at science, it is very important to treat every aspect of your health. So taking care of mental health, taking care of physical health, while yoga is the most easy and interesting, intervention for people to take, I think this holistic health approach is what has really shown us 85% and over, above that health outcomes for our customers.
All right. And if you could just throw some light on your revenues at this point, what are you currently making and where do you hope to end this year? And what are the future growth targets that you've set for yourself?
I wouldn't be able to talk about direct revenue numbers, but I can surely say this, that we are absolutely on path of looking at 1 million women, going through this phase and other issues in the next 3 years. This can be achieved and will be achieved directly through customers as well as through our corporates and employees. We see a consistent 85% and above health outcomes, which means any woman who comes to us has more than 85% probability of improving her biomarkers, improving her patient-reported outcome measures. And I would say we've just scratched the surface of menopausal treatment in India and abroad.
All right, so we've just scratched the surface of treating menopausal women. All right, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We're completely out of time, but we wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you so much. And happy World Menopause Day to all of you.
Thank you, and same to you as well. On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up, the Bureau of Indian Standards has approved India's first indigenously developed connector standard for 2- and 3-wheelers developed by Ather Energy. We speak to the company's founder on the other side to find out what this means. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. Now, the Bureau of Indian Standards has approved India's first indigenously developed connector standard for 2- and 3-wheelers. This first connector standard that has been approved has been developed by electric 2-wheeler maker Ather Energy. Now, the development could pave the way for a common electric vehicle charging system that can be adopted by several companies. My colleague Parikshit Luthra spoke to Ather's co-founder Swapnil Jain and started by asking him the significance of this development. Take a look.
The design has actually been made public almost almost 6 to 8 months back itself. We had, even before the standard was approved, we had actually made it open for any OEM to adopt our standard, and we will not only open the standard but also help them adopt the standards into their vehicle as well. So we have been having conversations with few of the OEMs on that front as well. And as you said, this will completely change the picture of charging infrastructure related to two-wheeler in the country. Currently, due to lack of a standard for the charging infrastructure, especially for two-wheelers, has led to every OEM trying to build their own charging infrastructure and with a different standards, not allowing interoperability between them. But having a defined standard which can be adopted by any OEM, this would essentially mean that not only it becomes easier for OEMs to start adopting standards and have an interoperability between their charging stations and somebody else's charging station, it also opens ways for third-party charge point operators to start developing now charging stations for two-wheeler manufacturers. This has been already happening for four-wheeler, but this was something which was not available for two-wheelers because of the different standard for every OEM. But now this means that OEMs and charge point operators, all of them can independently develop charging stations, which can be used by all the OEMs, and which means that a lot more access for all the customers to the charging infrastructure.
Swapnil, also just clarify for us, you're saying that BIS has selected and approved the connector standard that has been developed by Ather Energy. Will this be the only formula, only design that will be approved, and others will have to follow this as a standard? Or could other companies be approved by BSI, the Bureau of Indian Standards, as well?
Yeah, so this is actually, while it was developed by Ather, it's not an Ather standard as such. That's why what we did is we made it public. What it means that anyone can actually build and on top of it and actually improve the standard itself. It doesn't have to be Ather's standard. We had no intent of holding the IP on it. We are the first ones to build it, and we believe that it can help the entire EV ecosystem, and that's why we opened it up. What ideally should happen is that forming a consortium where all the OEMs can work together on further improving the standard based on everyone else's input as well. It doesn't have to be that every OEM has to get their standards sort of get it standardized. That is not the intent, because again it breaks the whole intent of having one standard for the country. What ideally should happen is all the OEMs now start coming together and build on top of what the existing standard is.
Okay. Give us a sense of the kind of collaborations you're looking for in terms of charging. Right now, you have about 1,500 charging points across the country, if I'm not wrong. What do you want to take it to? What kind of collaborations are you looking for?
Yeah, so I think independently, Ather itself would looking at doubling up the charging stations in next 9 to 12 months time frame. That's been our formula as well. Every city we start selling, we start by first establishing charging stations, and then we start sales in that particular city or town. And we'll continue with that thought process. We also continue to install more charging stations in the existing cities as well. Bangalore has now 100+ charging stations just in Bangalore itself. From a collaboration front, I think the biggest thing is all the OEMs start adopting to the standard and start moving to the standard earlier. That would essentially mean that now more access for people to use other charging stations as well, not just Ather's charging station, but anyone else's charging station as well. For example, today, Hero Vida and Ather share the connector standard, which means that our vehicles can operate on each other's charging infrastructure as well. And with more OEMs coming on board, this would make it even wider for any OEM to charge on anyone else's charging station.
Right.
And as I said, having more charger point operators also coming in, that's going to be another game changer as well.
All right. My final question would be on the festive outlook. What's been the month-to-month increase in sales and production, and what's your outlook for the festive season up until probably the end of this year?
Yeah, I think the entire last few months have been a bit ups and downs for the industry. But again, in the last couple of months, the volumes have recovered and have been steadily increasing. This festive season, we are already seeing a pretty good start, and we definitely believe that the volumes will start hopefully reaching of the numbers somewhere which are there around in March, April, that sort of a time frame.
All right. Thank you very much, Swapnil, for joining us here on Startup Street.
With that, it is a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. More news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.